Happy Sunday, and welcome to the Be Her Village podcast. It's been a little while since we've released a podcast, and it's because there have been some really exciting things happening behind the scenes at Be Her Village. So before I introduce this podcast with Emily Masnoon, let me fill you in on some of the cool things that have been happening with Be Her Village. As of right now, I'm just pulling it up. There have been $19,814.50 and counting. That money has flowed into the pockets of new parents. New parents are creating registries. They're getting the funds to pay for the support that they deserve. And we've got some awesome partnerships coming up. And things are all finally clicking into place. It's incredible to watch this all happen. The seed of an idea is finally growing. And parents now have a way to make it super easy to ask for and receive the cash to pay for the support providers they want. So we want to thank you to those who have supported us in big ways or small by joining us as a paid provider, by sharing our reels and Instagram posts, by liking our photos and telling your friends about us. We appreciate each and every bit of it. Now on to the podcast. In this episode, Caitlin McGrayas, founder of Be Her Village, talks to Emily Masnoon of Emily Masnoon Yoga and Coaching. Emily has a virtually based yoga and coaching practice where her focus is on pregnant and new moms. She encourages them to take the time to really embrace self-care for themselves, but also to be a better parent for their children. So she's helping them do that while they're going through their pregnancy and then also while they're navigating postpartum. Caitlin and Emily talk about the beauty and importance of strengthening one's intuition so we're better able to listen to our gut rather than the inner critic or outside opinions. Emily is a provider on the Be Her Village partner page, and if you're pregnant and want to use Emily's services, you can add her to your Be Her Village registry. I'll include that link in the show notes. We're excited to help parents get the funds they need to pay for the support they deserve. Thanks for being here with us. And now here's Caitlin and Emily. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome, everybody. I am Caitlin McGrayas, founder of Be Her Village, gift registry for support, not stuff. And I am so lucky to be joined today by Emily Masnoon of Emily Masnoon Yoga and Coaching. Is that correct, Emily? Am I getting that right?
Right.
Excellent.
Yep.
So Emily is an incredible person who does coaching and yoga and had a huge shift when the pandemic started to a fully virtual practice. So thank you so much for joining me today, Emily. I'm so grateful to have you here with me.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, this is great. So we have connected previously talking about, having you join our Be Her Village community and the work that we're doing. And I have to say, this is one of my favorite parts of this work. There's a lot of different kind of things and balls in the air. And one of my favorite things to do is to connect with other powerhouses like you who are both doing like this really cool business building and community building, but also heart-led, highly impactful, and making lives better. So let's just start with that. You're awesome.
Thank you.
We talk a little bit about what your practice is, and then we can just kind of see where we go from there. What is it that you offer?
So for the last decade or more, I've been offering mainly prenatal yoga and postpartum yoga. For a while, I would do in-person classes and workshops and mom and baby classes and partner prenatal yoga workshops. And so I got to work with lots of groups of expecting parents and moms and babies and such. And over that decade, things naturally have shifted. And so now everything is online, but that's not forced, that's by choice. And because while COVID gave me permission to really move online and allowed everyone to see the benefit and the value in connecting online, I wanted to reach more people and allow more access, right? That's something that we're all wanting is like, I need more access to this. I need more access to that. Well, this allows for more of that. And so now I'm offering prenatal yoga and postpartum yoga, but also birth experience coaching and just kind of like life coaching, spirituality coaching, transformational coaching after, in motherhood and beyond.
That's amazing. And so when I hear that as a doula, that's my entry into, this motherhood support realm. What I hear you saying is basically you're doing the doula work and the coaching prior, and then you're doing that work in the postpartum, but you're not necessarily attending the birth.
Exactly.
Are you doing things like kind of paint a picture for me. So is this
Okay.
something that, because there's a lot of people who want doula support, see the value in it, understand that they need somebody to help them through this enormous transition that has, you have the healthcare system entwined with this emotional and physical and relational sort of shift in our lives. So it feels like a natural place to have a therapist or a coach or a doula or some sort of trusted person. Are you coaching and talking about kind of just the emotional side of things? Are you also helping people figure out navigating their healthcare choices? What does it look like for someone to engage with you in coaching?
So for the coaching piece specifically, although I will say my prenatal classes kind of are always infused with more than just the prenatal yoga, right? Like the underneath kind of substance coaching stuff. The coaching piece for me is working in a lot of the like foundational inner work, because we're so like task oriented. What do I need to get done? And then we kind of deal with, how am I feeling about it? How am I responding to it after the fact? And so, me being like an insane plant lover, like I know the value in like the soil and tending to like where the roots grow first. And if there's an issue there, like working and loving that part. And so for us, and especially in motherhood, which is just like such an important role, like it's everything, to help people kind of see what's going on there and see what they're working with and see how they want to show up as they enter into motherhood. And then kind of with that going hand in hand, then we get to pull out, how do you envision your birth? Like what's important to you? How do we align your inner vision with your personal practices, how you're caring for yourself, how you're creating your birth plan, how you're aligning your birth team? So we marry the two together. And that's why my coaching offering is so important to me, and why I'm so passionate about it is because it is all important. Like we need all of it, And so I love being able to work with women on the emotional level and like help them uncover their truth, because we don't gain anything from like not knowing who we are.
Yeah. I just relate so deeply to this. I mean, off the air, I was just like, you're like, how are you? Which I think most people are like, I'm good. And I'm like, I am going through transformational emotional shifts. I am so good. But I am. And I also feel safe in connecting with you on that level. I feel like you're totally going to get what I mean when I answer a mundane question, like, how are you, with how I'm actually doing,
Yeah.
But I absolutely love this idea of the soil and of that being the thing we need to address, because I think there's so many images of motherhood, like, oh, well, which are you breastfeeding or bottle feeding? And are you saying, I remember having like, it's funny to me now, but it was very real in the moment. I remember being like nervous / anxious about the fact that I wasn't saying 5,000 words a day in front of my silent 4-month-old. like those are the types of things that I worried about. Am I a good mother? Am I doing X, Y, Z? And it felt very linear, and it felt very much like a checklist, and it felt slightly competitive with other people and with social media. And it really felt very surface level. It felt like petals and flowers and pretty things. And as I've grown into parenting, as I've grown into adulthood, and I've grown deeper in my marriage, and I'm like, I'm in the thick of all these great things. And the pandemic has often, like for me anyway, shed all of those pretty things. So we kind of all we've got left at sometimes is the soil. But it's the least interesting thing, I think, for gardening, is like the soil. Who cares about the soil? But like,
or at least from the outside, right? From the onlooker, but who cares what their perspective is necessarily too?
Yeah, the soil is actually where everything happens. Yeah. And when we get our hands dirty, it can be uncomfortable to have dirt on our hands. It can be uncomfortable to like dive in to see who we are underneath. And as I grow with my children, as they go from these little accessories, because they really were like, they just are a little bit attached to your body at all times, like a very cute living purse, but as they go from that to their own people, and I start to see these patterns of, how am I reacting to him? And why am I showing up like that? And digging a little bit under each time there's interaction, like I am either causing trauma to him or I'm healing it for me. And like, And it's an interesting, there's kind of a like a choice in each of those moments of how I want to do it. But there's no alternative. Like in parenting, it's this crucible of, okay, this is hard. And it's in the difficulty, I think there's such beauty, and it forces you to look at yourself in ways that I don't know, nothing else in my life has really challenged me to look a little deeper at myself and break down some of those defenses, break down some of those barriers that I had in order to properly and like authentically care for my child and care for myself, which is not something I had ever experienced. And I think that that's something that's really interesting about what you do is it's really about like, hey, you need to take care of yourself. You need to take a yoga class. You need to get a coach. You need to work through these things in order to be able to show up for the people that you love.
Yeah, I mean, you can't fake it, right?
Yeah.
Especially with kids, like you can't fake how things are going, and you shouldn't really want to or have to. And I feel like people's self-care is important for so many reasons, not just like, and if it were just for any one of these reasons, it would be enough, but not just for mom's comfort and like personal well-being and like joy in the world, but because also that's like she is teaching who's watching. Like your kids are doing what you do, not what you tell them. They are doing what you do. I don't care how scary that might be, it's reality. So we need to address that, right? Rather than like just trying to make ourselves feel less guilty and better, why don't we really like open to the transformation? Because it's scary, and I get that. But it has to happen, right? It's like it has to happen.
I really wish they would do what I said though.
I know.
Like
Sometimes
just put your shoes on.
I know.
I don't understand. I mean, I know that's not what we're talking about, but also a little part of me is like, can they do what I do and what I say? Because
I know. I know. Yeah, there's definitely a mix there, and there's plenty of gray area.
There is. So one of the things I just want to circle back to what you just said, that it's not just about us, is that our kids are watching us. And I personally find that to be such a motivator for caring for myself. And it's a little backwards. And I wish I was like the type of person that like just cared for myself because I was good at that, but I'm really, really, really not good at that. And it's something I'm learning, but
This is your opportunity, right? This is maybe the way that you were meant to learn that.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah.
Apparently. But I find myself doing things, it comes easily for me when I think about my children, and I think it's been this thing, since I became a mother. It was like, I have to respond. I have to and there is certainly like a primal necessary need to put your baby's needs before your own so that they survive, because if we all just slept through the night, our babies would not really necessarily, thrive. But there's also this balance of like, at what point does it come back, and how can we have this wider lens perspective on what it means to care for our children? Because I like to think of it as like, I am raising these future adults, and I give them their childhood. They have this beautiful little bubble that they live in. They don't know half the things that are, that are scary and awful in this world, which we're very privileged to be able to keep them in that bubble while also talking about important issues and political things that are happening in our world and justice and all of that. But there is this idea of like, you guys need to learn what it looks like to be a functioning adult. And if I'm not a functioning adult and I'm not finding this balance for myself, then how can I ever show it how can I ever teach you? And it's funny that it's more motivating to think, how can I teach them to be a functioning adult by being a functioning adult, versus just, how about I just be a functioning adult because it feels good?
I know. But then that goes back to your primal instinct of wanting to care for them. And if they're your motivation, fine.
Right.
Maybe that's what it takes. And that's okay.
Yes. Yes. I love that. So talk to me about the ways that you're supporting pregnant people. What does it look like in your classes and in your coaching? What sorts of themes are you talking about? Like, I would imagine your prenatal yoga classes are more than just a series of poses, but that there's an emotional and spiritual context
Absolutely.
to the work that you're doing.
One of my like ongoing main themes is how to listen to your inner voice, how to identify what's your intuition and what are all the fears, and things, opinions, standards, expectations put on you by the outside world, and how to really identify that voice and feel what that feels like and move your body in a way that you're moving along with that, you're guided by that. And, with that, like, appreciation of your body and what it can do and how you can guide your body. Like, literally there have been times, it hasn't happened in a long time, like in classes where I'm like, lift your right arm. And people have to look around first, not because they don't know their right or left. That's not what it is. It's waiting for permission or doubting themselves. Like, is that really what we're supposed to do? Am I doing it right? Like, without first just thinking, okay, I know what my right arm is. I'm going to raise my, like, just kind of that inner trust, cultivating the inner trust. And then when there's questions, then refer out, in general, like some stuff in a class. Yeah, you're not quite sure. Fine, look around. That's part of why we're all here in a group. That's not the point. The point is trusting yourself. The point is not doubting yourself first, trusting yourself first. How do things feel? What's my gut tell me? Because the more that we listen to it and we are willing to explore that, the more we strengthen it. And the more empowered we feel. And then we can move forward from an authentic place. And so my classes, we kind of weave that in through all of the postures. And of course, the strengthening, but also the trusting your strength. Trusting your breath. How do I work with myself in a way that feels like I'm in the flow with my own rhythm, rather than trying to do what I was just told to do and follow the steps that I was just told to do? That's not how we work with our empowered self.
That is amazing. And I think that is one of the areas that comes up in motherhood and parenthood and birth. And people learn this skill in different stages. So like I spoke to an infertility coach, and she shared her story of, not getting pregnant and the isolation and the IVF and the this and the that. And the way she was describing it and the lessons she learned were the lessons I learned during my birth. And it's like, I had this light bulb of like, oh, we're all learning kind of the same lesson. It's just a matter of like what crucible we're put into. Is it the infertility journey? Is it a difficult birth? Is it a difficult pregnancy? Or is it just plain old normal birth, pregnancy, fertility, and then just motherhood? There's this learning that happens, and that intuition and that reliance on ourselves is so important. I'm listening to you talk about that, and it triggered a memory for me where I was feeling frustrated. And this is not who I am now. So I just want to put that out there as like an asterisk. This is not the mom or the person I am now, but it was back when I had my first baby. And I remember being so frustrated. I was like the nursing on demand, very attachment parenting, always holding and wearing my babies. And that was what I chose. And I had this a little bit like holier than thou, like this is the only way to parent ever. And I remember making a comment to my mother about somebody we both knew who was, feeding her baby, like not if the baby cried or not if the baby did, but like because it was 11 a.m. and it was just time for the baby to be fed. And I remember complaining to her, like, just, I don't get how she can do that and how she's not responsive to the baby. And it was just frustrating for me. And she's a therapist, so this is probably how she's good at reframing it. But she was, in all of her diplomacy and reframing, said, well, Caitlin, it's really beautiful that you trust yourself to care for your baby without that external clock. And it was just so simple. It just shut me down and melted all of my judgment and reframed it in a way that made me feel good. And it was an interesting thing. And I say this not because like the goal is that you should not ever use a clock or an app or anything to tell you when to feed your baby, but just it was maybe one of the first times I realized that the way I parented was because I had some of that intuition, and maybe other people didn't have it quite as easily. And that was a light bulb moment for me, that it wasn't just something everybody could rely on, is themselves. And it's so powerful and so difficult to teach and to get people in touch with that sort of intuition, because once you get in touch with it in one area of your life, it's really hard not to be in touch with it in all areas of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's so worth whatever it takes to get in touch with it. It's beyond worth it.
Yeah. I
We do other
remember.
hard things all the time, right?
Yeah. And sometimes it's a matter of someone just pointing it out. I had a client once who was a doula client who was feeling an enormous amount of anxiety about her upcoming planned C-section. And, just like public service announcement, doulas and planned C-sections go together, and it's about the empowerment and
Right.
exactly what we're talking about, and not about like breathing through an epidural free labor, although those are great too. So she was feeling this enormous amount of anxiety, and it was like the night or two before she went in, and I just saw her kind of feeling like coming from a powerless space, feeling really stressed about it. And I don't remember exactly what I said, but essentially I said, now I remember, put on your attorney hat, because she's a powerful attorney in her job, put on your attorney hat. How do you feel when you have that hat on? Think about this upcoming birth and the conversations with your doctors and the nurses and the anesthesiologists and all the things that are causing you stress. And I think when she was thinking about her birth and entering the hospital system, we feel kind of shrunken. We feel like we're going to have to endure something,
Yeah.
And it's true. There's certainly reasons to feel like that. And it was so easy. I could see the switch. I could see her eyes switch. I could see her posture change. And then she walked into her birth with like this amazing like packet and a pen, and she just spoke to everybody with this beautiful power.
So
and she
good.
Amazing C-section, and it wasn't the birth she necessarily wanted, but it was necessary for her case. And it was so cool to see her step into that, because you just remind somebody like, you have this power and you use it every day in and day out, and there's nothing different about that right now.
Yeah. Having the power, having the freedom and the choice. Like whatever the outcome, that's not the issue, right? Like we find all these ways to just totally miss the point. The point is, how do you feel about it? Did you get to choose it? Did you get the answers that you needed, the support you needed? Did you seek it out? Did you require it? Like it's about the meaning of it. Like how do you feel about the outcome of your birth? How do you feel about your birth experience? Do you feel like you had one pulled over on you, or you weren't prepared, or someone didn't tell you the truth, or like didn't give you options? Do you feel like you wish you had better prepared and researched your options, whatever it is? Or do you feel like, yeah, I did what I feel was like a good preparation. I feel good about my choices. I feel good about navigating however things do end up going. And I feel strong in my own like power. It's just like, that's what it's about.
That is exactly what it's about. There's Penny Simkin is like the godmother or grandmother or whatever it is, the matriarch of the doula community. And she did a study, and it was handed to me in my doula training, which was, and I just absolutely love it. So basically what she did is she asked people who had given birth, some, a couple of weeks or months before, and some up to like 30 years before. So it was a wide range of people, and she basically interviewed them and put them into two different groups: people who had a positive reflection on their birth and people who had a negative reflection on their birth. And the expectation might be that the people who had a positive reflection had really quick labors and vaginal births and not that painful, and maybe no forceps, or not so many interventions. And that the negative experiences would be long, painful, awful, torturous labors and births and C-sections. And it was actually not like that at all. The two groups had all different kinds of medical outcomes in them, all different kinds of labors and births and durations and pain levels. And the thing that separated the two of them were the people that had a positive outcome on their birth felt like they were in control. They felt like they had agency. They felt like they were part of the decision-making team. They felt like people were consulting them throughout about their choices. And the people that were in the negative experience for their birth, every single one of them, even the people who gave birth 30 years before, could pinpoint an exact moment that somebody said something, and the words that were said to them in that negative way that made them feel disempowered, that people were rude to them in that time of vulnerability. And that's where it comes down to like, It's not about whether you have a C-section or not. C-sections are beautiful and amazing tools, and not just for medical needs of the baby. They're great tools for people who are trauma survivors, people who have, feelings about their bodies and have deep-seated fears about birth. It's okay to it's not just okay, it's great to choose that for yourself and opt in with really good information about the type of birth you're having. And that C-section can be hugely empowering and just a beautiful product of you being informed and having a voice in your care every single step of the way. It's really amazing work that you're doing, Emily. And I'm so grateful that there are people like you out there that are doing the work day in and day out, not necessarily like, hey, do home birth, because home birth is wonderful and a great option for some people, but not for everybody. Same with hospital birth, same with, C-sections. It's really about how we're made to feel in those moments. Yeah. So let's switch gears a little bit. What are you doing in the postpartum time? What do you see people struggling with? What are the areas that they are needing support in the postpartum time?
A lot of it is, some is physical, obviously, some is emotional. I see a whole mixed bag, and it is really, and the interesting thing is that it's different, and I see differences based, what I see differences on really are based on what are generally self-worth issues. And, sometimes it is, physical, like I want to be strong. I want to rebuild from the inside out, which is really what I hope for people to want if they're, talking about like physical, care afterwards. And so I work with people a lot I'll do one-on-one work, and sometimes it'll be ongoing. I've had postpartum clients who have, I've worked with them postpartum. It's been like their baby's now 3 years old, and like maybe they've got another pregnancy on the way. It's just like, it's a way of life, really, right? Like self-care. It's not just like, hey, let me just hit this goal and then I'm done. That's not consistent like living. But I work with them often one-on-one so that we can really first of all, so we can connect what is actually happening. How did their birth go? How does that feel? Like, what do they need to discover within themselves? What do they need physically? Maybe they have some diastasis limitations or pelvic floor stuff or back stuff or whatever it is. We can get in there and I can create a specific class that I lead them through. So we work one-on-one virtually every week for those one-on-one clients. Some of them, it's more coaching, and maybe it's far beyond the typical, fourth trimester. Maybe it's their kid is a toddler or even older, and they're like, I'm realizing as I'm parenting, there are things that I want to address within myself. There are things that I need help with or guidance with, or maybe it's just creating some consistent kind of scheduling with their self-care and allowing them to see the value in it. And more than that, allowing them to be okay with the fact that someone else might not see the value in it, but that their self-care is important for their own emotional well-being, their physical well-being, their ability to mother, their ability to model, their ability to live in the world and to fulfill their purpose with, strength. And that's really important to me too, to help people really, if they're going to do this work, really do it.
I love it. I think it's amazing. We have, I mentioned this on a podcast I recorded earlier today, so this might be a repeat for people who are listening, but it's worth repeating. We've been doing some research into baby showers because obviously Be Her Village is all about baby showers and changing this conversation from all the stuff and all the gear and all the plastic crap that we're, overloaded with at our baby showers, instead of what you're talking about, instead of doing the work, instead of supporting ourselves, and instead of the community care that we need, where we have people like you and other professionals really uplifting and surrounding and nourishing women as they transition into mothers. And we realized that the origins of the baby shower are closely linked to the Mad Men marketing era. Error might also be accurate. But essentially, the baby shower didn't come from a place of, or the modern day baby shower didn't come from a place of, how do we properly prepare this mother and these parents for the baby and for the shift that's coming? It came from, how do we sell this stuff? And so it actually started as I know. It started as a way to sell all of the stuff to parents and so they created a ritual and they marketed and they capitalized on the fact that people are willing to support and willing to spend money getting parents to support. Everybody wants to support the new parents. Of course, of
Right.
course people want this, but there's not an avenue to do it right now. And we need to shift that conversation from, it's not even just that you need this care, because you do, but you deserve it. And we're going to gift it to you. We're going to make sure that it's systematic, that every single person is getting this care as part of their preparation for parenthood, because it's so important. The things we told them are so important.
And I think it's beautiful that, like, regardless of the container, right, that the whole, like, how do we sell things to people, or this container that we're moving things into is like, how do we really support you? The container is there. Now it's really up to expecting parents to value, what are they asking for? What do they value and say that they are willing to have gifted to them? Because I can certainly see the scenario where someone's going to be like, like the coaching or the yoga or the, all of the other services there. I just kind of want to get all of these things and make sure I have all the stuff. Like, there are going to be plenty of people who just are unwilling or unable to see, like, the value and the long lasting value in really preparing, and really just educating yourself and, like, fortifying yourself and building community and building that within, yourself. So I think that shift is so important too, within us as women, within us, and as women, understanding what we deserve and what our value is and what is important, rather than what we were marketed to believe we need.
Absolutely. And understanding that in valuing that for ourselves, we're actually being better mothers, and we're actually providing for our children, because you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't, as much as I try. As I have tested that theory personally.
Open the fridge. You sure there's no snacks in there? No, okay, let me check again.
But you can't show up for somebody and show up not just for somebody, but showing up for your kids the way that mothering really demands us to show up, this 24/7 lifelong dedication, which chemically we're just kind of programmed to do, but we can't mother them without the care for ourselves.
We know, like, you just saying that, we know how draining it is. Like, we know how much it takes. How can we forget how much we need then? How much we need to keep that, to let that be sustainable? We know it. We just have to remember.
Yes.
We know that. We're amazing, intelligent, like, magical, powerful, smart women. Like, we know that.
Yes. We do. We do.
On.
One of the things that I have found is, like, I will, and it's this is what I mean though, like, I am the walking billboard for, like, what not to do, it's like, I will care for my 3 children. I will cook them warm, home cooked meals. I will organic food. I'm a stickler for, like, what goes into their bodies. And I'm really conscious of that. And I will do all of that and then not pack myself lunch, not eat all day, and then shove a bunch of food in my face at night because I'm starving and I'm like, and I understand, like, the disconnect there. Like, if I would just treat myself the way that I treat them, if I would just make sure that every few hours I have a healthy thing to eat, then I would have the energy that they have. I would have, like, these bodies that are strong and healthy and growing. And it's this unbelievable ability that I have of just totally disconnecting my own needs. And still, I'm saying this still, I'm one of the people that is guilty of doing this. And I think that there's a couple of things here, like, there's parenting, and that's an ongoing tough thing. But there's also, like, pregnancy and birth and that 4th trimester. That is one of the most challenging things that we will go through as human beings. Just our bodies, there's a physical and an emotional and a mental and a spiritual shift. And sometimes that shift is a crack, depending on like how flexible you are.
Identity change.
Yeah, it's really tough. And it's to go it alone. I think above all else, it's kind of just coming to me now, but, like, I sometimes have a hard time figuring out like how exactly to state what we're doing with Be Her Village and like what our goal is. But I think above all else, it's to make the whole experience less lonely. Because I think that whether you use a doula or you get a coach or you have a lactation consultant or someone you set up a meal train, or you know what I mean? Like it kind of doesn't matter what it looks like. I think it's just we shouldn't be doing any of it alone.
It's not
Because
meant
it's
to
so
be done
hard.
alone.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're the only, like our country is, and this not just our country, but like this time in our country is one of the only times, and this is pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, even more so. And I don't even know that we're but post the beginning of the pandemic. It's so isolating to become a mother because you're doing it in individual housing units, not multifamily, not villages where people are, working and interacting together, not, situations where young mothers are caring for each other's children in this beautiful, I mean, I think the communes had it right. Is it weird that my retirement goals are to like start a commune? Me and my team were talking about because one of the mentors that we got paired with on the How I Built This, the NPR How I Built This program, is she was raised on a female only commune. It was like her single mother and a few other moms just raised their kids together. We were all like, can we have an all female commune? And I was like, guys, we all have husbands and boyfriends. Like, what are we? They're like, they'll go with
fine. Then they can come too. It can be a commune with everyone.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be an all-female one, but I'm up for a commune because this whole doing it alone thing, if we just shared resources and we connected with one another, it just makes so much sense. Both like from a resource standpoint, but also just from an emotional standpoint. There's nothing more validating than connecting with somebody else who's either been there or is going through it in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's such a beautiful thing.
I mean, how many parents are going through a pregnancy and giving birth and they've never seen it? First of all, they've never seen birth.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, a lot of them have never like babysat a child or held a baby. I mean, what is that? How can that even, how is that happening? But it is a ton. Like it's so common. But in a community where you're like, everyone's caring for everyone, everyone's learning from everyone before you need to know the information. It's just like kind of how you do things, and that's kind of one of the things that I also work in with, especially my prenatal yoga specifically, is like, I encourage people to come as early as they possibly can and as consistently as they can, because that way, not only are you building like this self-awareness and like breath awareness and, shifting your mindset and like feeling empowered and reminding yourself of what you can do, what you're capable of. Now it becomes how you do things, not just something you have to remember from that birthing class that I took one Saturday that was way too long. Like this is I've been practicing this. I've built this new habit. This is how I do things. This is how I breathe. This is how I support myself so that I'm not suddenly overwhelmed. It's like this even sense of like ongoing strength and knowledge, and it's like ingrained.
I love that. I think it's so important. And I think that we are doing the work and we're reaching more people. And I also get this sense of the shift is already happening. I think that and this is part of what's exciting about your fully virtual platform. And part of what's exciting about Be Her Village's gift registry platform is that we are answering a need. I think people are waking up and they don't want a bunch of baby clothes. I mean, they do, they're cute and everything, but you need like 10 onesies and a few diapers, and there's this need for community and people are waking up and ready for it. And that is very, very
and
exciting.
Ready and feeling that it's okay to ask for these things.
Yes.
More and more accepted and okay to ask for support and ask for help. And not only is it okay, but this is how things were designed to be. This is how we're successful.
Yes, that's such a beautiful thing. How can people who are watching and or listening, how can they find you?
They can find me at my website at emilymasnoon.com. and everything is there.
Excellent. I love it. Thank you so much, Emily. This was wonderful.
Okay,
And
thanks for having
as
me.
usual, I am so grateful to be hanging out with you and for your time.
Thank you.